Hello everyone, this is Brent Horton, California Baptist University, a part of class KIN 302, Contemporary Health. And today I'd like to talk to you about a topic that is dear to me personally, and I'm sure maybe to you as well. The topic is depression. Uh, what is depression? Depression is a mood disorder characterized by feelings of sadness, and it's a very common condition. It's the one of the leading mental disabilities that exist around the globe, and specifically in the United States, as you'll find out. Estimates of 26% of Americans age 18 or older have a mental health disorder, which includes depression, Alzheimer's, dementia, um, autism, ADHD, etc., etc. Up to 20% of adult population is likely to suffer from this illness at some point in their life. And in the U.S., around 1 to 6 people have depression, and around 1 in 3 of these cases are severe. Um, that is just one source, although there's other sources that say 1 in 10 people have depression. Just depends on the source. Two types of depressions exist. There's either, actually there's three, but the two are the general and clinical, depending on its severity and length of time. But you also have mild, moderate, and severe. Um, it's characterized as a life debilitating state for those that have it, or those who've had it, and for some it feels unescapable, and suicide is the result of that. And speaking of suicide, as you probably know already, we've had recently Robin Williams that recently passed away. And maybe some of you remember Kurt Cobain from Nirvana. He was the lead singer of Nirvana. And just goes to show that no one's immune to this disease, and we don't know what the future holds and who will be next. So who's at risk? Um, you're more likely to be involved with depression if you have these certain things. If you have a long-term health problem, such as diabetes, heart disease, or arthritis. If you lead an unhealthy lifestyle, as we will talk about, so if you smoke, drink, inactive, or overweight, your chances are a lot higher. If you are between the ages of 45 to 64 years of age, and if you are black or Hispanic, if you are female, which they say is it's a lot of it's hormonal. So, for instance, like postpartum depression after giving birth, or right around menopause, postmenopausal, uh, and there's some estimates that 1 in 3 women over the age of 40 are taking at least one antidepressant. And then if you're adolescent, and that's usually just poor lifestyle choices. For instance, a lot of them are sleep deprived, and this can cause sleeplessness, fatigue, impairments in academic functioning, poor work performance, and it can also lead to drug and alcohol use. And then also there's social pressures that go along with being at that age. So, what are the symptoms, characteristics of clinical depression? Um, these are probably the most common. You have extreme sadness, poor concentration, sleep issues, loss of appetite, feelings of guilt, shame, hopelessness, change in personality, decrease in sexual desire or interest, impaired ability to work, love, and play, socially isolating themselves, pain that's either emotional, physical, or even spiritual, marked changes in personality and personal appearance, hygiene, lacking in the things that previously made someone happy no longer makes them happy, such as hobbies, food, movies, shopping, etc. And then unfortunately suicidal thoughts and tendencies can arise too if it's severe enough. And even just simple things like getting dressed in the morning or eating at regular meal times becomes an obstacle for some of these people. So let's talk about some of the causes. Hint, there are many. um, yeah, so some say, it's genetics, others biochemical, others say developmental. Uh, there's just so many different experts saying different things, but stress is definitely a big component of it, and that could be from trauma, such as physical, emotional, natural disasters, physical or emotional abuse, etc. And there could also be societal pressures. So depending on where you live, like here in the United States, we are more susceptible to depression just because of we have greater inequality, there's social norms, low social support, uh, intense individual competitiveness here, and like for instance Christians, we often feel kind of out of place and not of this world. um, that can even bring on depression. I even experience that sometimes as a Christian myself. And socioeconomic status, although studies haven't shown conclusively if that makes any difference, because oftentimes poor people can be just as happy as rich people. So and then health challenges. So for instance, if you're overweight or obese, depression is much more likely. You have a 55% increased risk of developing depression compared to those of normal weight. And continuing on with the causes, lifestyle is a biggie. Lack of exercise. So lack of exercise is it's not just getting exercise, but any movement is critical, and people are just simply not moving enough. And exercise or movements, if possible, it's best to do outdoors with nature. And if you're making it sociable, so taking classes or working out with a friend or partner or uh, going on walks and stuff with friends and family can really help that. Just being around people. And improper nutrition, as we will discuss later, is essential. And alcohol, drug use, tobacco use, those are obvious things. But doing those things obviously can lead someone to depression. And lack of sleep. Lack of sleep is a biggie. The National Sleep Foundation recommends 7 to 9 hours of sleep, but on average, Americans are um, getting only about 6 hours, 6 hours on the weekdays, and then 7 hours on weekends. And a third of the population exhibits at least one symptom of insomnia, with 6% fully meeting the DSM-4 diagnostic criteria. And less sleep has been associated with decrements in physical health, including development of obesity in children and young adults, studies show. And acute sleep deprivation decreases glucose tolerance that can cause endocrine dysfunction, similar to those of people that are obese or have chronic illnesses. And reducing the amount and or quality of sleep are predictors of major depressive disorder. The other thing is environmental toxins and modern industrial living, as we all live in and we all know. Modern populations are increasingly overfed, malnourished, sedentary, deficient from sunlight. Everybody's staying inside in their air-conditioned homes and workplaces. People are overworked, overstressed, and socially isolated. So let's talk about some controversies, some new discoveries, some things to consider. Um, we live in the 21st centuries and we love our gadgets, we love our phones and everything, but at what cost is it to our health. And one of these in particular concern is electromagnetic frequency radiation, and this comes from cell phones, laptops, tablets, televisions, outside cell towers, masts, smart meters, Wi-Fi routers, electric grids, underground cabling, microwaves, etc., etc. There's so many different sources. We're being bombarded every day, and it's really it can be catastrophic for some that are sensitive to electromagnetic frequencies, but it's also studies are showing even those that aren't sensitive are having issues such as headaches and depression and so on. And the problem is it's invisible, so you can't see it, and it's been shown to clump red blood cells, cause heart palpitations, pain, or pressure in the chest, accompanied by anxiety, and the upregulation of the sympathetic system, and downregulation of the parasympathetic system, typically associated with the fight or flight response. And since 2011, the WHO has included wireless radiation as possible carcinogens. And then the other thing to consider is, soon enough here we're going to have 5G technology, and instead of Wi-Fi, we're going to have white gig. And as you can see here, we had 3G not too long ago. Currently here we're in the 4G, and we're going to soon be into the 5G. And by 2020 will be full rollout, although they've already started as of this month, October 1st. And just a real quick thing on that. According to experts, 5G uses a bandwidth which is shorter, which do not travel through buildings. To make sure the bandwidth is reliable, small cell stations will be everywhere, so inside and outside your house, every corner, every light pole. And health experts believe that 5G will have a devastating impact on our health. So it's just definitely something to consider, and they're not doing a whole lot of testing for its safety. They're just so anxious to get this rolled out, and unfortunately there's billions of dollars involved. The other thing to consider is smartphone, tablet obsessions, especially with our adolescents. And there's one study involving 319 university students, and the results indicated that depression, anxiety, and sleep quality may be associated with smartphone overuse. And then overuse can lead to depression and or anxiety, which in turn can cause sleep problems, and it's a catch-22. And just you see the children or adolescents, teenagers on their phones, and they're ignoring sometimes even their family members, or those that are important, and it's causing social isolation and degradation. Another thing that's common among this goes for everybody, but also adolescents, and but we have the media and the social media. So with the media, as everybody knows, you turn on the news, and it's just depressing, and I think that's it'll cause depression in even those that aren't diagnosed with depression. Let's put it that way. And then social media can cause it causes people to be more isolated and out of touch with their feelings and true identity. Everything is about me. For instance, Instagram, you have people that are just self-righteous, arrogant, and creating exaggerated or false narratives about themselves. They're cropping, photoshopping their photos, and showing only the good side of things and having fun. And oftentimes it's not the case. It's not true. Another thing to consider is, especially more recently, is the use of glyphosates in the United States and around the world, which is basically Roundup. Monsanto's big project. And research has been shown that glyphosates, as an herbicide used to spray our crops and so on, is a huge endocrine disruptor. So it just messes with their hormones and neurotransmitters. And March 2015, the World Health WHO and for research and cancer unanimously determined that glyphosate is once again probably carcinogenic to humans. The problem is it's just there's not enough research, and the research that they do have is outdated, and I think there needs to be more done here as far as research. And countries that have said no with it and have already banned it in some cases are Argentina, Australia, Belgium, Bermuda, Brazil, Canada. 8 of their 10 provinces have banned it. France, Germany, Italy, Luxembourg. And there's a few others. I think we should join them, personally. And another thing to consider is that glyphosate affects our gut microbia, which I will show you in the next slide, how that can be devastating. And it's been shown in one 13-week pilot study where they took rat pups and their feces were collected of 433 fecal samples, and they've shown that glyphosate affects the microbiome, and it's even at low doses that it showed that it messes with the microbiome. And so the study revealed that even low-dose exposure to glyphosate resulted in significant and distinctive changes in overall bacterial composition. So as I was saying, there's an important gut-brain connection, and messing with that gut microbiome could be devastating. The gut is home to a diverse array of trillions of microbiome, and it outnumbers human cells in number. And the total weight of our gut microbiomes is about 1 to 2 kilograms, depending on the weight of the individual, and that's equivalent to the human brain, which is about 8 pounds. And the immune system, neurotransmitters are produced in the gut, and that goes especially for serotonin. So if our gut is messed up, we can see things like leaky gut, dysbiosis, and malabsorption issues. A number of studies have even demonstrated that there's a profound relationship between the gut microbiome and behavior changes. And there was even one study that they did where they conducted germ-free mice that were delivered surgically and raised in a sterile, isolated environment with no microbial exposure, and they demonstrated heightened anxiety and depression. So let's talk about what are people, doctors and experts doing to treat this? What are the current options? First, it's important to note that depression is treatable, and the sooner you get treatment, the better your chances of success. And instead of trying to explain and treat depression from a single point of reference, doctors now typically approach it with a combination of treatments, such as the following. First thing that's common is obviously drug therapy, and definitely with the more severe cases, antidepressants are used due to a biochemical deficiency. And it has been shown effective against depression, although the numbers are varied. In the 1960s, it became popular to prescribe depression to exactly such a chemical imbalance in the brain, and focused on a deficiency of serotonin in particular as the main cause of depression, and so treatment became oriented towards SSRIs and so on to treat serotonin deficiency. But we now know that it's not always that. It's not always that case. Another form of treatment is psychiatric treatments, counseling, and then also cognitive behavioral therapy, which has actually been shown to be pretty successful, and it's useful for recognizing and correcting negative thought patterns and provides necessary problem solving, coping skills, and strategies for negative thinking and stress induced situations. And it's important to note that race, culture, and socioeconomics can affect treatment status, and that depends on, of course, availability to treatments, and then affordability and so on. There's also a stigma with culture, as it is often considered okay culturally for whites to take antidepressants than blacks or Hispanics, especially for men. So it's asking a question: is there more that we can do? And I believe the answer is yes. I think that there has been a lot of research that has been done, especially in the alternative therapies. And here's just some statistics here that I found. Doctors in 2009 wrote 235 million prescriptions for antidepressants, which I'm sure is a lot higher today. And a $16 billion market for antidepressant drugs. And they use a one-size-fits-all model. Again, going back to the serotonin deficiency, drug companies have created a simple model for depression, and therefore, if you take a drug that raises serotonin, it'll cure you and treat the depression. Which reality is a lot more complex than that, as anybody who has worked with depression or has experienced it firsthand knows. There's even a meta-analysis performed by Kirch and colleagues and others for moderate to severe depression showing that antidepressants are often no more effective than placebo. So some alternatives to consider. Proponents agree natural treatments are just as effective sometimes as antidepressants with far fewer side effects. One such alternative is music. Music has been shown to be tremendously relaxing on the effects of the mind and body, especially slow and quiet classical music. Has been shown to be beneficial on our physiological functions, such as slowing pulse and heart rate, lowering blood pressure, and decreasing the levels of cortisol. It's been shown to relieve depression symptoms and increase self-esteem in the elderly population. And it's also been shown to reduce burnout from monotonous jobs or other activities, while improving mood among nursing students. Religion, prayer, meditation, and journaling has also been shown to be effective for many. Spiritual health is, as we all know here, essential for us, but for many people find the answers and the purpose of life through spiritual means, which can greatly help with depression. Meditation can be a great tool also for calming the mind and body during times of heightened stress response. And journaling has also been shown to be helpful in some studies. And some new research, closer look at biochemical individuality. And it's important, I think, to point out the cause of depression, and is it genetic or is it epigenetic? And epigenetic is above genetics. It's the environment. And as you can see the picture here with the two mice, you have two twins, same DNA genes, same hardware at birth, but yet they were fed different diets, different exposures to BPA, bisphenol A, and you can see here the mouse on the left was given a normal diet, and here the mouse received supplements, specific supplements, and while being the same, they're obviously different. So eating a diet that is wrong for a person's biochemical individuality or metabolic blueprint can be catastrophic to one's health, as you will see. One discovery of recent of epigenetic is methylation, which if you look here at this chart here, it's just a really complex system of enzymes that your body uses, especially in the process of detoxification. The liver especially uses methylation to get rid of drugs and toxins throughout the body. And they're showing that with new research now that there's three types of people. There's people that are normal methylators. Their processes of methylation works good. There's persons who are over-methylated, and then there's also people that are under-methylated. And over-methylated people can generally exhibit high anxiety, panic disorders, absence of seasonal allergies, present food chemical sensitivities, dry eyes, do well on Prozac, etc., etc. Persons who are under-methylated, like myself, I recently got tested and found that I have a problem in this area. Seasonal allergies, perfectionism, critical of self, strong-willed, slender body types, OCD tendency, high libido, and depression are common with these people. And conditions associated with undermethylations include anorexia, bulimia, prone to addictions, depression, schizoaffective disorder, delusions, and OCD, etc. And I would just like to quickly play you a video to show you a little bit more of what that entails.
People who have a low level or concentration in their body of methyl, which really is a low level of a molecule, which we call SAMe, that donates methyl for many different functions in the body. And if a person is, these things run in families, and people who are undermethylators or hypomethylated, they tend to be obsessive compulsive. They tend to be perfectionist, especially things that they care about. They tend to be people of high accomplishment, or at least have families of high accomplishment. People who, and the reason is that they tend to be obsessively and compulsively striving to achieve. Most of the great athletes, and I've tested some of the world's greatest athletes, most great athletes are undermethylated. Most people who are CEOs, heads of organizations, doctors, scientists, these people tend to be, I would say 95% of them are undermethylated if you test them metabolically. Unfortunately, about 15 or 20% of people who are undermethylated are prone to problems. One of the aspects of that is low serotonin. So because of the low serotonin, these people tend to be prone to depression.
Alright, just get back to my screen here. 1 second, please. Alright, so as you saw in the video, um, there tends to be some traits associated with either. And another thing to consider too is diet for these people is different and should be different, and supplementation should be different. And one such thing is folic or folate, folic acid. Folate is an important B vitamin. It's vitamin B9, but it could be medicine for the overmethylators, but a poison for the undermethylators. Undermethylated people tend to do better with lower levels of folate containing foods, which are generally these guys, dark green leafy vegetables, which, everybody's saying you got to eat your greens, green leafy vegetables all the way. But unfortunately, that's not the case with these people that are undermethylated like myself. We tend to feel run down and even depressed. Overmethylated people, on the other hand, would tend to do very good on these types of diets, high in green foods, and even supplementing with folic acid and folates would be a good thing. And it's also important, like even multivitamins, B complexes, and prenatals have folic acid in them, and that can be problematic for someone that's undermethylated. Another thing that I suffer from personally is a zinc deficiency. I get these little white spots on my nails, and this is common around the globe, and it's usually a deficiency coupled with a copper overload. And just real quickly, zinc is critical for your body in so many different respects, and more than 90% of people diagnosed with depression, behavioral disorder, ADHD, autism, or schizophrenia exhibit depleted zinc levels. Zinc, whoops, I'm sorry, let's go back. Zinc deficiency has been associated with delayed growth, temper control problems, poor immune function, depression, poor wound healing, etc., etc. Copper, while it is important to the body, it's needed in much smaller quantities than zinc, and it actually works as an antagonist to zinc in the body and fights for absorption. And there's a prevalence of copper overload versus zinc, and this can lead to leaky gut, malabsorption issues, and problems with elevated norepinephrine, which is it creates heightened stress, anxiety, and depression. Another thing to consider, more and more research is pointing toward pyrrole disorder, which is shown to be a cause for depression. And it's estimated that 10% of the population has this disorder. It's a genetic disorder characterized by abnormality in biochemistry, resulting in the overproduction of pyrrole molecules from the process of red blood cell formation. And in the process, these excess pyrroles, when they exit the body, they bring along them zinc and B6, and they deplete the body of these two critical nutrients. And people of Scandinavian descent, Irish descent, or those with Aryan features, again, myself, are more prone to this. And excess urinary pyrroles often manifest themselves as behavioral abnormalities. And high incidences of individuals with pyroluria is found to be correlated with the following conditions here. And so, lastly, just talk about quickly the alternative diagnostic testing that exists today. One of them is called SPECT, and that stands for Single Photon Emission Computed Tomography. And this was made famous by Dr. Amen, and he's a natural psychiatrist as well as MD. And what it is, it's nuclear medicine test used to study heart, liver, thyroid, bone, and brain problems. It has been proven reliable. It measures cerebral blood flow. It shows us the patterns of activity in the brain. As you can see the picture here, what happens in use of alcohol and drugs. And the SPECT scan is similar to an MRI, where both show 3D image and slices of the brain. However, MRI shows only the physical structure, whereas the SPECT can show how well the brain is working or not working. And PET or PET scans, while it is another form of nuclear imaging, it's similar to SPECT, but it's a lot more expensive. So this is just a great thing. Another test is whole blood histamine, which is a marker for methylation status that we talked about earlier. And there's another test with testing your SNPs, methylation gene SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphism. It just checks for your genetic weaknesses through gene expression and any abnormalities. And cryptopyrrole quantitative urine test is used to test if you have pyroluria or Peyronie's disease. And then serum copper test and zinc plasma test are used to test your zinc and copper level status. And then hair mineral analysis is usually good for testing heavy metals, which has been shown to correlate with mental problems as well. And it also tests any vitamin, mineral deficiencies or excesses and different ratios. And one specific test is called SpectraCell's micronutrient testing, which is shown to be really effective. And you can find out more information on either of these tests on amenclinics.com or dhalaboratories.com. And that's it. I'd like to thank you.